HR to HR, from hell raising to human respect. The podcast is a little bit of career therapy, a little bit of chaos control, and a lot of workplace wisdom. Basically, all the things that ain't in the employee handbook. You're not going to want to miss it.
Welcome to HR to HR, from hell raising to human respect. I am Dr. Ebony Baylor, host, curator, and creator of this podcast. So excited. Thank you for joining us. Please make sure that you are liking, following, subscribing, and sharing to make sure that others can find us in ways to thrive in the workplace. I am so excited for today's episode. I have the fantastic, the fabulous, the illustrious Dara Wilson. She is a career coach, and she is going to be bringing us the heat today. Our topic today: it's time to quit your job. Okay? That's what we're going to be talking about. It's just time to quit your job. So super excited to have you joining us and listening in today. Please, Dara, please tell the HR to HR community a little bit about you, your experience, and what you got going on.
Well, thank you first for having me. I'm very excited to be here. This question is a good one because I'm always the kind of person who is like, well, first I was born in a river, and I'll take you through the whole thing. But the short version is I came to coaching like a lot of people do, which is there's a line of people by your desk asking for help. And you're like, if I don't learn how to do this on purpose, it's going to destroy me. So that's what kind of got me into it. And also I have so many opinions, and now, people are paying, so they want to hear them. So I don't have to bother my friends anymore. The reason I focus on toxic jobs, unsurprisingly, I was in a very toxic job. I worked at Google for 6 years. And in my second week, I heard somebody saying the N-word, and the investigation revealed that it was not racially related, something like that. And that was week 2. And I stayed there for 6 years, and that's not a good thing that I did. And so now I'm trying to help people recognize the signs early, recognize that it's not your place to change, and get out and get into a place that is values aligned, that does actually value you, pay you what you deserve, and let you be happy, because life is short.
Well, wait a second. You said two weeks in, and then the investigation said that it was unsubstantiated, basically.
It was not racially motivated was the term that they used.
Okay. And so
for the first time in history, I guess.
Right. Because I'm thinking, like, historically speaking. History. Okay. All right. Well, moving on from there, you graduated and moved on to bigger and better things, building your brand. Obviously, through that experience and that journey, you have done some healing and now paying it forward. And so talk to us about, what are you seeing, like your experience, but there's other people that are experiencing toxic environments and conditions that are probably on the verge of taking them out. What are you seeing as some of the latest trends?
The latest trends in toxicity. Oh my gosh. First, unfortunately, I will say things are not changing. Things like the places that are toxic, were toxic, still are toxic. I constantly am met with or work with like Black women who are at Google right now dealing with the same kind of stuff that I was dealing with, but like many years later, many years later, almost we're getting close to 10 years later. And all the work that they were doing to fix things while I was there gotten us nowhere. There's a lot of like mask off happening right now that is, I think, making people more aware of how things are, but the things themselves are not new. What I mean by that is like the second people had an excuse not to do DEI anymore, they were like, great, we don't have to keep pretending to care about this stuff. But the reality is that was always the case, that they didn't actually care, and that whole departments were set up to look like they were doing something, but were not actually empowered to make anything happen, right? So again, it's like, it's not new. But there's a lot less pretending, I will say. And in some ways, that's a good thing, because it means that if you are methodical in the process you use in your job search or in your search for work in general, you can absolutely figure out who's doing what before you get in there.
Yeah, that's a really good call out. What we're seeing, social construct and all the things that are at play right now.
Mhm.
What do you think is the impact? Like, aside from our shocking our systems and those of us that are in these environments or maybe experiencing some things, what are some of the impacts that you're seeing?
The impacts on us, on our
Yeah,
bodies,
on our
on our
bodies,
yeah.
our brains, our nervous systems, our awareness, our health. Like, let's talk about all of those.
Okay, so then my answer is yes to all of it. It's having an impact on all of it. And the thing that I want people to hear is the impacts are not short term. The impacts are long term. And the longer you stay, the longer the impacts will exist. A lot of the work that I do with people is helping them to get out of the bad job, yes, but also then we've got a whole healing journey to go on to get yourself back to the sparkling person you were that they were attracted to begin with. Right?
Mm.
The reason that you get targeted is because you're different, but that's also the reason that they wanted you in the first place.
Mm.
So that work is long and hard and must be done intentionally, because if you don't, you will just carry a toxic job with you for the rest of your life. You will turn all your subsequent jobs, even if they're great, into toxic jobs because you have maladaptations that you have started to use in your behavior to try and protect yourself that are now harming you.
Wow, that's crazy. You separate from an organization you have, and you're carrying previous workplace trauma,
Mhm.
already thinking about how you need to self-protect. And so how do you separate? Like, because it's not going to happen overnight. Obviously, you didn't get to a place where you're traumatized overnight, so that healing doesn't take place overnight either. What does
Yeah.
that look like? What could that look like?
For the folks that I work with, I start from the job search. And a lot of people feel like the job search is something to like just get through, but I strongly believe that's a place where the healing can begin, where you really can tap into your agency, tap into your power, start to be a more honest and truthful person, and then let the right roles and the right environments reflect that back to you. So I use something called the values for a job search process for that reason, that you are starting to retrain your nervous system, that it is okay and safe to be the person that you actually are, and stop pretending to be someone else in the job search and then getting mad at the job when they want you to be that person, right?
That you
Like,
projected that you were when you really
right.
weren't that person.
Exactly. When you were like, "Ugh, I just love working by myself and I love being super data driven," when you're not a data girly. And then you got spreadsheets on spreadsheets and you're like, I just can't believe they're asking me to do all these spreadsheets. Like, well, girl, you said that
That's
you
what you
loved it.
wanted.
That's
Yeah.
what you wanted, right? So figuring out your unique value proposition, what makes you different than everybody else. And usually it's the thing that somebody in the toxic job told you was bad.
Oh,
Something like that.
wow.
Right. Right. So it's something that you have been trained to believe is inherently bad when at most it just wasn't a fit.
So how can you
It
tell
just
the difference between something that's inherently bad and when something is just not a fit? How do you discern between the two?
Well, first of all, if you're listening to this, I'm gonna tell you it's not inherently bad, just off rip, because I know the people who who end up in my circles, and it's not like the voice in the back of your head that is like, I feel like this might be racist or sexist or homophobic or or whatever. Like, we don't make those things up, right?
Mhm.
That voice is one that you have been actively suppressing to try and survive in that environment, and that voice is telling you the truth. So that's the first thing. Like, I'm a default to it's not bad. Some of the other signs you can use to like help evaluate, for instance, the biggest one is you can't do anything right, even by accident. Like,
Mm.
right, a stop clock supposed to be right twice. Like, you should just, by law of large numbers, you should stumble into doing something right. If every single thing you do, there's something wrong with it, that's toxicity. That's the environment. That is not you. And you're being set up for failure.
Mm.
Um, Another big one that I have to help people come to realize is you are being chastised for missing expectations that were actually never communicated to you. So because you're so proactive, because you so want to take on feedback, people use that against you and then say like, well, why didn't you do this? And you get in trouble for not being a mind reader. But what your brain tells you is, oh, I should have known. I had a situation at Google where I was in this kind of situation. Everything I did was wrong. Everything I did was bad. Even when the numbers didn't add up to that, I was like, I have one of the best newsletters at this company in terms of like this number, this number, this number, this number. But you're saying it's bad just because it's bad? Like what? It doesn't logically make sense. And then it wasn't like technically a PIP, but it was like, I'm going to tell you all the things you actually need to do very specifically. And then I started to do well. And they were like, wow, you're really improving. I didn't improve anything. I just knew what I was supposed to be doing for the first time because my manager was managing for the first time, you know? So feeling pressed to take responsibility for others' lack of communication or lack of consistency is another sign that it's not you, it's them, and it's that environment. One of the biggest ones that especially we can see now, just everybody feels like they're walking on eggshells. You feel like that psychological safety we're talking about. You feel none of that because at any moment, anything could just get somebody fired or laid off, right? This is another instance of things not actually changing, but becoming more obvious. The profile of layoffs is a lot higher. The actual numbers are like slightly higher than they were before, but the idea that your full-time job was a safe sanctuary for you has never been true, especially if you're a woman, especially if you're a woman of color, especially if you're a Black woman. That was never true. And the reality is like the job market's really hard, and that's true. And it's always been like that for us.
Right.
Like
Right.
the approach that we needed to take was always, you need to be talking to people. You need to be proactive. You need to be talking to companies and organizations before a role opens up. That was always the case. That's always the way that we were going to be able to level the playing field. And now people no longer have the comfort of their delusions.
Peel that back a little bit more, Dara.
The delusion that there is inherent safety, like after companies got rid of pensions, right? Like companies very clearly said in like the 80s, we no longer are going to pretend to care about you. We don't care about you being here long term. And then people started reacting to that, and there's like a feedback loop, right?
Right.
And now you don't even have the veneer of safety. So in some ways, I think it's a good thing because like, we're talking here about you need to quit your job. You do.
Yeah.
Because that job is not loyal to you. And if you don't have a plan to get out, you're going to be on your back foot when those layoffs do happen.
Gone
right?
are the days 20, 30 years, 40 years, a whole
Yes.
lifetime. Those times are shrinking and disappearing. And so as we're talking through like the impact of some of the trends and what we're seeing, 2 years, 3 years, let's say a person finds that job that like, okay, this is going to, scratch that itch that I have and fill my needs. I feel like it's a culture fit. Is it realistic to go into that job and think you're going to just be there forever?
No. That's my
the
whole
delusion,
answer.
right?
Yeah. It's not realistic also because cultures are not static. Like let me just tell the truth. I got a really great job that was extremely values aligned. And then with one bad hire, the trickle down effect was such that the whole place went bad. Like somebody left a refrigerator open, like the job went bad. And that doesn't mean that I was wrong when I made the decision in the beginning. It doesn't mean that it wasn't actually the great place that I thought it was, but then it changed. And so then I needed to make a change,
Right.
And we don't have to make meaning out of like, no, my identity was so wrapped up in this job. And what does it mean that now the job is not what I thought it was? Like things change, you got to change. And staying ready to leave, like making sure you're working on stuff that's going to help you for your next job, keeping in mind what your actual North Star is that probably is not does not have to do with a specific role, but is more about like a lifestyle that you want to live into. Keeping those things in mind keeps you oriented towards yourself, your goals, your community's best interest, your family's best interest.
Let's lead into more about why it's time to quit, because you hit on a
Yeah.
couple things. And just
Mm-hmm.
a shameless plug, my third episode was about workplace identity. Like, I felt like my self-worth and value and all of that was tied into this role and the things that I did and the things that I brought. And as my journey started to evolve, I realized that, yeah, this isn't what I wanted. I was starting to grieve because I wrapped myself up in my identity in that role. So, in terms of it being time to quit an environment that is clearly toxic or evolving into a toxic situation, why is there such a struggle, one, to recognize when this thing is happening?
Mm-hmm.
Did you think that it was going to improve if that person was not there, or was there hope that things were going to get better? And then the follow-up question is, why do we allow ourselves to stay in those situations?
A lot of us, I'm going to start with the last one first. A lot of us stay in those situations because, especially my folks who have like historically been high achievers, you
Mhm.
have been taught that there is safety in the institution, and that if you play the game the right way, then you will be rewarded, right? Like, the worst and best thing my worst manager ever said to me was, it doesn't matter how hard you're working if the work isn't good. Because I was inherently like, I'm working so hard. I work so hard on this, and you're just ripping it apart. Now, I think in a good organization, like, there's lots of things that are wrong with that sentiment, but to just have someone say that to you baldly really like threw into relief. This is not like the answers were A, B, and C, and I put A, B, and C, and therefore I'm a good girl, and therefore I will be rewarded, right? Because the world doesn't actually work like that. But a lot of us been raised to believe in the protection of doing the right thing and following the rules and going to the right schools and in reality, none of that is going to protect you from racism. Like, if somebody don't like Black people, they don't like a Black woman who went to Harvard the same way they don't like a Black woman who went somewhere else or didn't go to college. Like, the false protection of your degrees and the credentialism and all of that, you were taught that those things were supposed to protect you. And then we get into these environments where that's not the case. We keep looking for, if this isn't working, it must be because I'm not following the rules correctly, or it must be because there's a different set of rules. When the reality is, toxicity wants to be toxic. Abusive environments want to be abusive. They were built on a foundation of abuse, and there is no amount of doing the right thing that is going to stop that.
Now, I think that's the part that hits like a ton of bricks, because when we think about people as they continue to stay in toxic work environments and try to thug it out, wait it out, outlast the situation, it starts to chip away at you emotionally, psychologically, physically, your health. You're just sitting in it, festering. Why do we do this? Why are we sitting here waiting? And what are we waiting for?
Well, and I will say, one of the most insidious signs of toxicity, because it is a form of abuse, they all use the same playbook. When you have the feeling that you can't leave, even though you know logically there was a time where you didn't have this job, you exist as a person outside of this job. But the same way in, romantic relationships and partner relationships, where you are divested from resources, you are made to feel alone, you lose your compass, and what used to be true is no longer true, and you don't know what is true. Like, that same playbook is being put to use, and the biggest telltale sign is when you feel like you cannot leave. So the reality is, the environment gives you signals to your brain on purpose that you're stuck there. Whether that is, well, you're doing such a bad job, who's going to hire you somewhere else? there's that paradigm, right? When they so break you down, you also don't have the energy. Hope is a verb. Hope is active. Hope takes energy. And when you are using all of your energy to try and win an unwinnable situation, you don't have any reserved to expand your aperture and remember how big the world is. So I want to make sure that I'm clear about that, because I don't ever want to be blaming someone for reacting to a situation in a way that, like, your brain is literally set up to react. You're trying to protect yourself.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, our brains are evolved for a world that hasn't existed for a very long time. And the protection is not actually protection. It's comfort, it's familiarity, but it is still harmful.
Is that what you see as the reason we don't commit to quit?
100%. I see a lot of people have a habit of saying they're doing something when the only action towards doing that thing is saying that you're doing it. Like, oh yeah, I need to get out this job. I'm trying to get another job. Well, what did you do? Nothing.
You just said it. You just said that
I
you
just
needed to
said
do
it.
it.
You
Right.
said you needed to do it. And to a certain extent, again, the way our brain works, that satisfies a little bit. It scratches an itch. Like, I said it out loud. Now, what you have to do is the scary thing, which is actually try. That's where people get hung up. And it is not until staying is so painful, or you are laid off or fired, that it becomes worth it to your brain to say, I'm going to go do a scary thing that may also be painful, because it's not as painful as what this job is. But really, it's like, you're like the frog in the pot where the heat is being turned up slowly. Like, you don't even always understand how much you're being harmed until you get out.
You made a really good point about understanding the fear and take the plunge, because that's less painful than what you're staying in. When you're coaching and the work that you're doing with your clients, what is that conversation helping your clients understand that moment?
I think the key point is helping them understand when they think they have made the decision, but they have not actually made the decision. What I mean by that is when they're saying, I need to quit this job, and then week after week, it's like, okay, who did you talk to on your exciting companies list? How many pain letters did you send out? Right? And the answer is none. One, and I didn't follow up, right? Where what is actually happening is you are seeking confirmation that it is scary, so you don't have to do it. I think the tipping point is when someone truly understands in their body that it's going to be scary and you just got to do it anyway. That, like, fear is what you must go through to get to comfort. You can't wait for the comfort and then say, okay, now I'm going to do it. Because the only way that our brains start to stack evidence that something is safe is through actual action.
In doing it.
You have to do it. You have to do it and come to terms with, I'm going to do a thing that is scary. Okay. And you're allowed to be scared the whole time. You're allowed to write your pain letter while you're screaming into a pillow saying, I hate this. Do it anyway. Do it anyway.
What is that self-evaluation? I mean, you've come to a point where you're like, okay, it's the organization, it's the environment. Part of the survival is you trying to adjust, right?
Mhm.
Doing the things that you think you need to do to win favor, make things different, make things better. Oh, it's going to be better if I just do X, Y, and Z. Then you realize, yeah, I'm damned if I do, I'm damned if I don't. Once you get to that point, probably got some PTSD, and you're getting to a place where you're like, I really want to leave this place. I just need to. I want to, and I'm going to. What's that self-evaluation process that actually triggers the verb to actually take those actionable steps to quit the job?
I would actually caution against trying to do this alone and trying to make this into a self-evaluation, as opposed to, I have been flipped up, turned around in this place. Now is the time to borrow someone else's objectivity. Borrow the wisdom of someone who has your best interests at heart. And I don't mean someone who has fear in their heart, because sometimes we get that mixed up, right? You go to someone and they're like, you better stay in that job because they're afraid for you, not because it's not that they want the worst for you, but they're not solving for the best for you. They're solving
Right.
for baseline, how do we stay unscared? Getting Doing it by yourself is a lot of times how you end up in that place to begin with. So I really do caution against trying to go it alone. This is why I love the work that I do, because you don't know what you don't know, and you are not the best evaluator of whether the things that someone has said to you are true or not. That's the work that we do, because I can hear it and say, no, that's not true because you said this other thing. And so I know that that's not true. Like I can just help you dismantle the limiting beliefs that have been implanted into you by this toxic environment. So I would say let finding your community and finding the person who is going to help you be accountable, let that be your first step, not trying to undo it all by yourself internally. That's a recipe for failure, because you don't know, you just can't always know. Like, there are so many times where we think we are having our own thoughts and it's actually someone else's voice dressed up as us. And so when you're in that position, it's actually pretty dangerous to try to do it all internally, because you got bombs in the back of your head waiting to go off that sound like you and are not.
By the time clients come to you, how many have gone on that journey have trying to do it themselves? DIY.
I'm everybody. Everybody, because nobody believes they need help until they try to do it themselves. And they're like, nothing is working. What's going on? And we can, really unstick things. And again, like, even by working with a coach, you're working with someone who's working with a lot of different people. And there is a comfort in knowing, like, I tell my clients this all the time, like, you're a beautiful, unique snowflake, and also you're not that special. Like, this situation is unfortunately very common, but that's good, because it means that there is a way, a practiced way to get yourself out of it.
How do those that are on this journey find community, Dara? I think it's important that, because again, trying to do this on your own, it's difficult because you
Mm-hmm.
really feel like you're on an island navigating these type of
Mm-hmm.
situations by yourself. How
And that's
does
by
one go?
design.
How does one go about finding community?
I'm going to go back to what I said before about, like, being mask off. The only way you give someone an opportunity to demonstrate to you that they are in your community, that they do share your values, is if you offer that up honestly and truthfully first. I just this week I had a client who was like dragging their feet on networking, and finally pushed through the fear, got into it, and was like, I am loving building my community and being on LinkedIn, and it doesn't feel nearly as bad as it used to. And it's because the approach that we take is values forward. It's values first. And you connect with people that you actually want to connect with. You stop seeing people as like people who can give something to you. And instead, you're like, well, this person smells good to me and I smell good to them, and we're going to do this thing together.
Oh,
But
I
like,
love that.
you got to be proactive and you have to be honest.
Yeah, that honesty, navigating workplace situations, we've all been told historically, you do this, you do this. Again, loyalty, work hard, all of these things will yield this abundant sunshine
Mm-hmm.
and loyalty back to you. And now
Mm-hmm.
we know that that's not the case. And so we have to reprogram what building those relationships and what that network looks like. And so what I'm hearing you say is, what's your personal value proposition? Putting that up front and prioritizing that as you lean into building and expanding your network. And how do
Right.
we find our value, internal value, our personal value proposition?
I mean, I got a worksheet for you if you want to do it.
Yes, we'll make sure we share that with we'll share that with the listeners. We can drop it in the
Yeah.
episode.
Yes. It is, I think, the most important thing when you are trying to think about your values is to, again, be honest. The honesty starts with yourself about what's actually important to you, not what you want to be important to you, not what you want to tell people is important to you, but like what's actually important to you. Because that misalignment, when it starts on the inside, sets you up on a foundation that's not going to help you later with connecting with anybody. Because then you're connected with a bunch of people that are aligned with a version of yourself that doesn't actually exist.
Back to that.
Right. I mean, literally, you could boil my whole philosophy. It's all complicated, and there's processes and worksheets and all these things. But just tell the truth. If everybody just started telling the truth,
be so much easier.
You can get very far just on that. But it's simple, but it's not easy.
Yeah, and it's the hard work, and it's probably the part that's scary, and people operate in fear, and that's what keeps them from doing it.
That's right. That's right.
What has been the greatest turnaround that you've seen in working with some of your clients? Like they started at point A and now they are at Z, doing the work and following through that it does yield the fruits. What's the greatest story that you can share?
I'm hesitating because I don't want to introduce hierarchy into people's growth. The stories that I care about the most, like people who know me know, like, yeah, I can help you with your resume. I don't care about your resume. Like you got to do it because you need to have a thing. And yes, there is a way you could do it that's different than using AI and a way that actually is helpful to you. I only care about this stuff insofar as it helps you retell the story of yourself to yourself, right? I only care about these things insofar as they are a part of your own healing. So the greatest transformations to me are, I'm coming up on $1 million of raises and increased salaries and new money from my collective client base. And that's great. And money is important and blah, 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 blah. And people get new jobs that they really love is really important. But the transformations that I love are when someone's in a new job that they got through a values forward process and they say, I'm in a deep depression and I told my boss and we worked together to make sure that I stayed on my promo track while reducing my workload and taking care of my mental health. That's a conversation that person would never have felt comfortable having before, but now they are reaping the rewards of the hard work that they have done to be truthful and honest because they're in an environment where that's safe to do.
Safe to do.
And they believe that they deserve the help. That's a transformation that is very different than what that person would have done before, which is suffering in silence, right? Or I have a client who made her own job and was like, listen, you're asking me to do this. You don't need me to do this. Actually, you need me to do this. And so therefore, that is what I'm going to do, with just like a confidence that they never would have had before to say those things. And also knowing you're in an environment that's going to not just accept that, but celebrate that. So the transformations that I care about, because my goal is to create an army of people who demonstrate that you can have joy as a part of the revolution and not as a thing that we are going to get later on. Those are the things that are most important to me, that you feel like you came back to that version of yourself where you were just like 5 years old and confident and talking to people about the things that were important to you, like before you got broken down and taught to mask and taught to put yourself in a little box. And like people going back to that full version of themselves, those are the transformations that I love the most.
Man, we have talked about a lot. You have given us a lot of insight into the journey and just why it's time to quit our jobs and like really be accountable for that decision and owning that decision. And before we close out, I'd love to end every episode with a WWW, a workplace word of wisdom. Will you please bless the listeners with a workplace word of wisdom?
Yes, I'm happy to. Your toxic job is not going to untoxic itself, and you are not going to untoxic it. It is time to leave. That's all I got for you.
Point blank, period. That's it.
It's time to go. You deserve better. They don't deserve you. And you can't even remember how much life is better when you are not in there. But you're going to.
When you quit your job.
When you quit your job.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Dara. Please tell the HR community where we can find you. I'll make sure that the information makes it all the way through the description of the episode, but tell people how they can get in contact with you if they want to be blessed by you, blessed by your services.
I'm Dara M. Wilson on all the things. The M is important. There's another Dara Wilson who went to jail for beating up her kids or something, and I've been running away from her since I was applying to colleges. I'm Dara M.
Dara
Wilson.
M. Wilson.
Yes. You can find me on Instagram, but mostly on LinkedIn. Find me on LinkedIn. I'm there and I want to talk to you.
Awesome. Well, I want to personally thank you. And so I'm just grateful that you took the time to bless me and bless our listeners. And certainly we'll make sure that everyone knows how to find you on Instagram and make sure we get you that information as well. And listen, let us know in the chat if you're able to comment on this episode, what you think, what we need to talk about some more. We could go on about this topic forever. Okay. This is a big and meaty and rich, and there are so many layers to this. So let us know what you think about this episode. Please do make sure that you like, follow, subscribe, and share so that others can find us and then also learn how to thrive in the workplace or not, because it might just be time to quit. Until next time, friends, stay respected by being respectful. Till next time.